Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Public Works for Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. Dr. Campos, do you want to take roll and check on quorum with you?
Absolutely. Fernando Campos, Executive Officer, establishing roll call and quorum for today. We have Commissioner Caloza, Commissioner Good, Commissioner Davis in the room. They're both here all three are here at City Hall. We are also joined remotely by Commissioner Viega, who is dialing in from her City Hall office here in City Hall. And then we're also joined by Commissioner Garcia, who is dialing in remotely from a remote site. Our General Counsel for today is Ms. Tania Isagiri. She is remotely dialing in from, looks like from home or from a remote site. I am here at City Hall with you. Mr. President, you do have a quorum at this time. Currently, we do not have any public comments under general public comment. We also did receive a letter from the Neighborhood Council section from the Wilshire Center, Koreatown North Neighborhood Council on item number 2 that has been distributed to all commissioners. At this time, we do not have any speaker cards on any of the items, but we did receive 3 emails from item number 2 that has been distributed to all commissioners as well. Mr. President, at this time, we can start off with item number 1.
All right, so hearing no speaker cards on general public comment, let's go ahead and close public comment. Let's go to the first item of business. So item number 1, the approval of the minutes for the meeting of Tuesday, June 26, 2020. Is there a second to my motion to approve the meeting minutes? Commissioner Davis has seconded. Any objections? Commissioner Villegas?
Thank you. No objections.
Okay, thank you. Vice President Garcia?
No objections. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Caloza?
No objections. Thank you.
All right. Hearing no objections, those minutes have been approved. Now we'll go to item number 2. Item number 2 is a request for tree removal at 696 South New Hampshire Avenue. Recommending the board, and you'll have to bear with me, it's a long set of recommendations, but important for the record. Recommending the board, 1, find under the California Public Resources Code, section 21166, and the state's Environmental Quality Act Guidelines, section 15162, on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record, that since the city's prior certification of mitigated negative declaration, M&D number ENV 2016-1414 M&D, there have been no changes to the project, changes with respect to the circumstances under which the project is being undertaken, or new information of substantial importance concerning the project, which cause new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of previously identified significant effects, and therefore no subsequent M&D, supplemental M&D, or other analysis is required for the project. 2, specify that the Bureau of Street Services Urban Forestry Division, located at 1149 South Broadway, is custodian of the documents or other material that constitute the record of proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. 3, review and approve the request for a fee permit for the removal of 5 trees, which include 3 rusty leaf fig, Ficus rubiginosa, and 2 Indian laurel fig, Ficus microcarpa trees. Tim, you will have to correct me on my butchering. Tree replacements are required. And 4, concur with Bureau of Street Services determination that the site cannot feasibly accommodate all of the required replacement trees, and pursuant to LAMC 62.177C, authorize the tree replacement guarantee fee to satisfy the board's tree planting requirement. Dr. Campos, do we have any public comment at this time for this item?
Mr. President, we do. We have 2 individuals that are lined up for public comment. We are also joined by a 3rd line on the Zoom line that has not been vetted, so I'd like to ask that caller to identify themselves, but we do have 2 individuals. Okay. Just to note, we do also have 2 members from the Holland Partner Development Group that are in the queue should the board have any questions for the applicant. So at this time, we will go ahead and take public comments. Public comments, you will be given 2 minutes to speak on this item. We will go ahead and start with Ms. Elizabeth Consuela, I believe, and I'm sorry if I apologize for mispronouncing the last name. Elizabeth?
Hi, it's Elizabeth Israelis. I'm a member of the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council, and I represent over 70 stakeholders who have signed a petition against the removal of these trees. The development 697 New Hampshire Boulevard proposes to destroy a total of more than a dozen trees, 5 of which we're speaking on today, which are located on public property. According to the declaration from California legislature, forest resources and timberlands of the state are among the most valuable natural resources, and CEQA includes these as part of historic and aesthetic significance. And because the forest resources have been declared to be the most valuable resources of the state, the destruction of the urban forest canopy should be considered for CEQA or other types of mitigating review. I would state that the MND is completely incorrect in its stating that there is no impact resulting in the loss of forest land or the conversion of forest land for this use. As noted specifically, the application states that this is going to be serving for staging of materials, the storage of construction materials. I would also note that Holland's assessment in the documents provided by your council is incorrect. They note that the root systems will need to be removed and that this will kill the trees. And that's not what's stated by their own arborist. Their own arborist specifically stated that there were means that could be taken, though they may be more difficult, that would allow the trees to survive. I would like to also note that the application to MND, that this would result in no cumulative, considerable increase of any criteria pollution for which the air basin is non-attainment, including ozone and carbon monoxide, is absolutely incorrect. These trees specifically have been found through multiple peer-reviewed studies to be some of the best CO2 sequestering trees, and at maturity filter approximately 60% of street-level particulate.
2 minutes.
Last Friday, I was able to meet with representatives from Holland who stated that it was possible to mitigate the impact of material staging on several of these trees. Unlike the application presented as part of the permit, the representatives from Holland stated trees appear to conflict with recently revised plans presented by DWP.
Your time is
Based on
up.
this, there has been a
Elizabeth?
significant change.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much. We've passed the 2 minutes.
Appreciate
your comments.
The next caller we have on the line is Ms. Joanne D'Antonio. Joanne, I have unmuted your microphone at this time. You will be given 2 minutes to provide public comment on item number 2. Go ahead, Joanne.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask for a continuance on this so that we can take a look at whether all 5 of these trees need to go. There is a conflicting report about one tree that's not on the site, but is one of the 5 trees. The arborist did not find rot, and UFD we think should maybe double check and see if that tree really has to go or if it just needs some maintenance. As far as the trees that are in conflict with DWP access work, we would like to double check with DWP to see if there's any way to put their materials under the trees, under the tree roots, or find some other method. There's a fire problem with using the alley, but there might be a way to go that way. We got these transmittals yesterday, so we need some time to see. We have contacted one of the DWP commissioners, and we need a little bit more time to look at some of these things. These are valuable trees. They are healthy from what we can gather from the arborist report, from the Holland's arborist. And we would like to see, having served on the DUDEC report and realized the commitment of Board of Public Works to preserving trees, we would like to ask for this so that we can be sure that these trees really have to be removed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. We will go on to the next caller ending in 932. Caller ending in 932, can you please identify yourself and which item you'd like to speak on? We are accepting public comments on item number 2 at this time.
Oh, hello, I didn't realize I was unmuted. My name is Dina Bowman. I live in the neighborhood of Koreatown, and I just wanted to say I want to support not removing the trees and asking for more time to ensure that what's best for everyone involved, and if that involves more time, then please give the individuals involved more time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, that concludes the public commentary that we have in the queue.
All right, well, our representative today from Streets LA is Hector Benuelos. And so, Hector, if you could, I can't see, are you there? All right, Hector, can you?
I'm here. Yes, I am here.
Great. Can you please provide us your report?
Yes. Yes. Good morning, President Good, Commissioners. Hector Banuelos with the Streets LA Urban Forestry Division. We have before us is a request from Holland Partner Group to remove 5 trees for construction of a 36-story, 375-unit residential apartment complex at 696 South New Hampshire Avenue. It's on the northeast corner of West 7th Street in the community of Koreatown. The Streets LA always looks in ways that retain mature trees whenever possible, and we have telephonically met with the applicant in various in recent weeks to discuss the proposed tree removals and to consider or look into alternatives to potentially retain the trees and still allowing the developer to construct their proposed project. According to the applicant, the contractor needs to clear both South New Hampshire Avenue and West 7th Street in order to prepare material staging areas that include hoisting of material by crane located on both streets adjacent to the roadways. This is needed in order to construct a 36-story development. The arborist did inspect the location in March, and it reveals that there are 3 Indian rusty leaf fig trees, the Ficus rubiginosas. They're mature trees, large trees, in a large parkway setting. However, one of the trees there is located on the adjacent property, but the applicant has reached out to the adjacent property owner, and they are in agreement that they don't share much concerns as to removal of the trees to construct the project. And another 2 trees there will be impacted by the construction as well. So one tree, the southernmost tree, is in, actually the northernmost tree is in poor condition. That one does have fruiting bodies at its base, and the tree is just a matter of time before it does decline and eventually die. And so therefore it should be removed just on that merit alone. The other 2 trees, there's one tree located in the proposed driveway that is required in order for the developer to excavate and to transport the soil away from the excavation there for the subterranean parking lots. And another tree, one of the large ficus trees, rubiginosas, will be impacted by a proposed transformer that is required to be installed in order to construct the development. Those are 3 trees that are in New Hampshire. Now, there are the 2 Indian laurel fig trees, the Ficus microcarpa on 7th Street side, that are going to be impacted by the required street light installations and other utility installations, and as well as also some of the man lift, other logistical support that is needed to construct the project. And so the 5 trees will be required to be removed in order to construct this development here. If approved, the applicant appears to be room for 4 36-inch or 3 36-inch African fern pines and as many as 3 36-inch box-size Australian willow. For recent communication with the applicant, they have agreed to plant larger specimen tree sizes as much as large as the 60-inch box-size trees on the project in order to minimize the impact to the loss of all the trees, the canopies, are at this project site here. And if approved, the There's going to be another 3 additional trees for the record. I think on the report we indicated those 4 additional trees needed to meet the board's 2-to-1 replacement. Actually, if they do have room to plant 3 trees on 7th Street and they, with the 3 trees up on, or 4 trees up on New Hampshire Street, that'll just leave the balance of 3 trees for the in lieu tree replacement fee. The Council District Office, CD10, the Community Forestry Advisory Committee, and the Neighborhood Empowerment were informed of the tree removal permit request. The Council Office has taken a neutral stance on the proposed tree removals permit request. Any questions?
Okay. Vice President Garcia, it looked like you raised your hand.
I did not, but thank you
sorry.
for that, President. Good. I do have a question, though. Hector, I see that we have 5 trees that we're going to remove. 1 you said is no good. 2 is because it's in a proposed driveway. 3, they're gonna build a transformer. The 4th and the 5th, though, you said that are those for the staging area, or are those gonna be impacted for a specific reason for the project?
Yeah. There's actually, Commissioner, there are 2. The furthest one, the one that's in poor condition, is actually really close to one of the driveways, and so, but because of this condition, it should be removed. There is another tree, I believe it's a tree furthest south, and that tree is also within the footprint of a driveway needed to export or egress of the large truck for excavation. And then there's the tree in the middle is the one that's going to be impacted by a proposed transformer installation. The other 3 Indian laurel fig trees on 7th Street, those are going to be impacted by, they need to install a man lift to hoist up the personnel needed to construct the project, and also for other logistics support. There's also going to be some excavation being performed in the area for utilities and water meters and other stuff for the project.
So, Hector, overall, will any tree be removed just for the purpose of staging construction material and for a temporary purpose?
No. I mean, it's just the large no.
Okay.
Actually, the ones on 7th Street are the ones I had concern on initially, and it was explained to me that the applicant needed to remove those in order for them to because they're going to be excavated. They're going to be digging, trenching really within the critical root zone of those trees. And so therefore, the trees are going to be severely impacted.
Go back to the same scenario we had. We were going to take out a good mature tree just for a temporary purpose, and that's kind of the practice I don't want us to go into.
Understood.
Thank you, Hector.
Thank you, Vice President Garcia. Colleagues, does anyone else have questions? Commissioner Villegas?
Thank you, President Good. I was going to, suggest, because we do have, I think the first caller on the line said that there was going to be a removal of a tree for staging, and Hector just said that it was not. And I was just going to suggest, and then the second caller for today's item suggested that we continue the item, so perhaps we should do that, and perhaps have our advocates at Streets LA discuss the item further before moving forward.
Can I say something really quick? What I meant to say was not all the trees are going to be affected by the
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So not all the trees, but several of them will. Because the developer has to hoist material safely, the canopy of the trees will be affecting the ability of the contractor to hoist the materials up.
Hector, I'm sorry. Can you please repeat that? So, and I apologize. The logistics and sound are difficult. So, are you saying again, trees will not be removed for a temporary purpose?
Well, it's I guess you could call it temporary, but sort of the materials, in order for them to develop, safely hoist the materials for this development, the tree is going to have to be removed. But not only that, there are 2 trees that are going to be impacted by the driveways needed for the excavation. Then you have one also for the transformer installation there along New Hampshire.
Okay. So while it's there for staging, it's also going to need the excavation.
Yes, the staging in addition to other things.
Okay. Commissioner Villegas, any further?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Colozo?
Thank you, President. Good. I just had some follow-up questions for Mr. Banuelos. I know that when this original request came in from the applicant, it seems like they, actually not seems like they submitted it earlier in the year in January 2020. Since then, there's been some changes obviously to how busy our streets have been, to just in construction in general, with lighter traffic. Have we tried to explore any other ways to kind of get around some of the issues outlined here in terms of trying to give them the access they need to build without going into the removal of certain trees for the purpose of for staging?
Yeah, that would be a question probably the applicant may be able to address more appropriately.
I know we have representatives from Hardin. Can someone answer Commissioner Colozo's question?
Yeah, we do have two representatives from Holland Partner. I'm going to go ahead and unmute the line for Clement Say. Clement, your line has been unmuted at this time.
So we've been in coordination with doing some traffic control approvals and permits right now in anticipation of trying to get as much out of the street or out of the public right of way as possible and into the street. We're having some pushback on that as well. It is a valid point with the lower traffic loads that we have currently right now and the situation, but with the unknown of how long this impact is going to be valid or not, we've been using that with traffic to push our ability to get the traffic control adjusted for that. But without them not knowing how long this is going to last, their concern is if it opens back up, everybody starts going back to work in the next 3 months on a project that has a project duration of 30 months, that it temporarily would fix the problem, but not long term.
So, and I apologize, it was a little bit hard to hear you, but did you say that the construction period was 30 months?
Yes.
Okay. And at what point, or I guess I don't want to comment too much, but I think what would be good to see, and I do agree with Commissioner Villegas' recommendation to maybe look at this again since the circumstances have changed, is which of these trees, if any, can be saved through another means if it's just for staging. Because we do, while I know the circumstances are unknown within the 30-month duration of your construction period, we do know that at least within the next, at least 2-3 months, the situation right now, and if there's certain trees that allow you to potentially explore what it looks like moving into the street or with the lighter traffic without having to remove them, I think that's definitely worth exploring as a possible next step. And what are the ones that are actually required to be removed, depending on what it looks like as it relates to your 30-month construction period. So I don't know if I got that across clearly, but Mr. Banuelos would like to get to your opinion on what you think is feasible.
Yeah, the way it's explained to me is that the trees are just, they can't construct the project, at least with the trees there on New Hampshire. The trees, the ficus trees there on 7th Street, there is one that's within the footprint of the proposed location for the man lift. And so the man lift's not going to be able to function with the tree there. And there's one tree that is, in my opinion, maybe potentially be able to retain, but I'm not exactly sure of the details of how far or how much excavation is actually going to be required or be performed around the tree. But the way it was explained to me was that the tree is definitely going to be impacted and it's going to be required to be removed as well.
Yes, correct. This is Brett with Holland again. So that is correct, Hector. So that tree, which is number 5 on the report, the impact it will have is not technically temporary. I mean, the time period that we're going to be in doing those excavations is temporary, but the excavation is for permanent water feeds for both fire water and for domestic water, as well as the sewer laterals. The limitation is that there's only sewer in the public right-of-way on 7th Street, so we couldn't relocate those to New Hampshire, and there's 3 of them. And then there's the 2 main water points of connection, so which are both on New Hampshire and on 7th due to the requirements for fire service.
Thank you, and our apologies. It's really hard to hear most of you, so that's why I think we may be repeating the same questions or or asking you the same thing. It's just there's a echo in our boardroom. But I'm sorry to ask you this for probably the 10th time, Mr. Banuelos. So what you're saying now, or what I'm hearing, I think, is that all these trees are necessary for removal and they're not for temporary staging.
Yes and no, because all of them is the one for the transformer. But it's my understanding that the transformer that was going to be installed up on New Hampshire is a temporary location. It's a very large transformer, but it's needed to supply power for the whole construction operation. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, but that transformer is later going to be relocated. It's potentially going to be temporary, but there was no other location for that temporary transformer. Is that correct?
That is correct. It was originally proposed to be on 7th Street when we started this back with DWP in 2017, the review of how we're going to get the temporary power to the site. So it was originally on 7th Street, but then they came to find out, we got an updated plan for them in June, saying that it had to be relocated to New Hampshire due to the fact of excessive underground utilities in the sidewalk already on 7th Street. So they've moved it on to 7th Street in the position that least impacted us for construction purposes, like the ramps for exporting, importing, and also for the fact that it needs to be close to 7th Street because that's where their future feed for it is coming from.
Okay. Thank you both. And I guess just one last question for the representative from Holland. But are any of these units that you're building, are they affordable housing?
They are. There are 37 of them.
Did you say 30 units?
37, very low income.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I don't have any further questions, but I think I would still prefer to hold this over, if only to get a briefing from Mr. Banuelos for huge chunks of this conversation that unfortunately were a little bit harder to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Davis, any questions? Okay. So, colleagues and friends, actually, I do have one more question for Holland, and I apologize, sir. I've not been able to. It is really difficult, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to have to be indulgent. We are stretching our ears to the greatest degree possible to hear. But the gentleman from Holland, who's been very generous in talking through everything, can you just share what some of the community, what the community outreach process has been leading up to this?
Yeah, so we purchased this site entitled back in 2018. So the original entitlement was completed by Heritage Development. So unfortunately, Holland did not do any outreach because we didn't own the site at the time. And since then, we've just been permitting and designing the project. When we did hear of the opposition from the neighborhood council, we did reach out to Elizabeth and speak to her just this past Friday.
Okay, thank you. So, as a still rookie president of this board, I will share that I have long known and been even warned that some of the most fraught items that we would deal with on this board and will deal with on this board are around tree removals. And you know, it is a convergence really of, certainly with this one, of two existential crises. Trees are superheroes that address climate change, that address drought, that address quality of life for community. And that's been articulated and with zeal by the Wilshire Koreatown Neighborhood Council, and we appreciate you being here. We also have an existential crisis around housing, and we need as much housing stock as possible, and recognize that of the 376 units, to Commissioner Colosa's question, 37 are affordable units, near 10%. And so this is obviously a very crucial need as well. And so I think what I would like to do here, and I appreciate all of my colleagues' input, in particular Commissioner Villegas, Villegas' suggestion, and Commissioner Colosa's reiteration of the idea of continuing. So what I would like to do is continue this item for 2 weeks with the following caveats. I would like Street Services and Adele Hashgalil to report back in 2 weeks, having convened both sides in figuring out what I am absolutely convinced is a rational compromise that will allow for maximum shade, maximum canopy in that very dense community, while also allowing this project to move forward in the most expeditious way possible. I would also ask that in that report that we be provided crystal clarity over the distinction between temporary and permanent replacements. And I don't mean to be catty, I just would like to be really clear on what we're talking about. It seems to me a temporary removal is a permanent removal. And so just want to be really clear on that. So with no objections, I'd like to continue for 2 weeks. I really thank Hector, thank you. The folks from Holland, thank you. The folks from the Neighborhood Council and the community, really thank you for coming out or picking up the phone. And we'll see Streets LA, and I'm sure all of you, back in a couple of weeks.
Mr. President, that continuation date or advisement date would be Tuesday, July 28, 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Campos. Any other questions, colleagues? Okay.
This is Teresa. I just wanted to make sure that the date is good with our board, with our Streets LA, with the developer.
Is 2 weeks from now, what's the date again, Dr. Campos?
That would be July 28th.
Does July 28th work for all parties to come back to the board?
Yeah, I will not be here, but we will have a rep for Streets LA.
Okay, thank you. From Holland?
We are available, but that will delay the start of our project.
So you will be available, thank you. And from the Neighborhood Council?
I can activate a line. Which line would you like me to activate? I don't believe any Elizabeth or Joanne are part of the board per se, but I can open up those lines for you. Elizabeth, are you a officer of the Neighborhood Council, the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council?
Hi, yes, I am an officer of the Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council, though anything beyond what we've submitted and voted on, I am speaking as a stakeholder and representative of those who signed the petition, just because that's the way Empower LA lets us talk. But yes, I am a member of the Wilshire Center Neighborhood Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council, and I will be available on the 28th. And I really appreciate your consideration taking the time to hear this. Thank you all so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Villegas, for flagging that. Really appreciate it. All right. Thank you all. We will see you back in 2 weeks. Thank you. With that, we will move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is a contract renewal recommending the board, 1, request authority from the Bureau of Public Works, from the Board of Public Works to exercise the 2 one-year renewal options in the contract between the City of Los Angeles and S. Groner Associates, Inc. for the Stormwater Public Education Program. All original items and conditions of the contract remain in effect. Our representative today is from LA Sanitation is Joyce Amaro. Hi, Joyce.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ms. Amaro, can you please tell us about this?
Yes, absolutely. Good morning, President Good, commissioners, executive staff, and Bureau representatives. Can you hear me sufficiently?
Yeah, actually quite well. It's refreshing.
Very good.
Very good. So I oversee LA Sanitation's Watershed Protection Public Education Program, and I'm here this morning with Michael Scaduto, Assistant Division Manager with LA Sanitation's Watershed Protection Division. We are here today to request authority from the Board of Public Works to exercise the 2 one-year contract renewal options for contract number 125888 between the City of Los Angeles and S. Groner Associates to provide services related to the city's stormwater public education program, as is mandated by the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, MS4 Municipal Stormwater Permit. Because S. Groner Associates is a contractor in good standing, and because of the extended amount of time needed to execute contract renewals, LA Sanitation Contracts Group recommended asking that we exercise the 2 one-year renewals simultaneously. I understand that you typically only see 1-year renewals at a time. The City of Los Angeles has been engaged in a program to reduce the amount of pollutants entering the region's storm drain system since the early 1990s, when the Regional Water Quality Control Board issued LA County's first MS4 permit, in which the City of LA was a co-permittee. The city is currently required to meet the mandates of the 2012 NPDES permit. And as part of LA's effort to remain in compliance with NPDES permit requirements, the city is mandated to implement a stormwater public education program to educate the public about what they can do to prevent storm drain pollution and keep LA's local waterways clean. To that end, and to ensure the city's compliance with the MS4 permit, we have developed and implemented various public information and public participation activities, which are mandated by the permit. The scope of this agreement authorizes S. Groner Associates to continue providing the required public education services to ensure the city's compliance with the permit. The services that S. Groner Associates has provided to the City of Los Angeles since 2015, and that they will continue providing if the contract renewal is authorized, include the following: the maintenance and growth of the Watershed Protection Program's online social media presence, which includes a blog, quarterly e-newsletter, Facebook page, Twitter feed, Instagram page, and YouTube channel; the implementation of a pollution-specific program that focuses on placing outreach materials at the point of purchase in retail stores citywide, such as home improvement stores, garden centers, paint stores, dog groomers, veterinary offices, in an effort to reduce specific pollutants of concern, which include bacteria, pesticides, fertilizers in our local waterways. It also includes the implementation of an elementary education program that educates students about the importance of keeping pollutants out of LA's rivers, creeks, lakes, and ocean. The city's sponsorship and participation in Kids Ocean Day, which is an annual beach cleanup at Dockweiler Beach that typically attracts the participation of between 4,000 and 5,000 LA area students. And the development of an online municipal employee stormwater training program that includes training materials and an online training module. Throughout the life of the contract, Esperona Associates has provided satisfactory services to the city and has proven that they are a reliable contractor. The MBE and WBE goals for this contract are 18% and 4% respectively, which are the city standard for personal services contracts. Our subcontractor participation levels are currently at 12.16% for MBE and 3.64% for WBE. The goals of 18 and 4% respectively will continue for the remaining 2 years of the contract. And we are aware that our MBE numbers are low, and I believe that you have been briefed on that during the quarterly deviation reports that LA Sanitation Contracts Group provides to you. The scope of work for this contract has shifted since the RFP was released back in, I believe, 2012. We're printing a lot more materials back in 2012, and our program has become much more digital in nature. And so we have not had to print as many materials as we did, as we thought we would originally in 2012 when we released the RFP. But we have continued to explore creative projects and work for our MBE subcontractors. Throughout the 2 one-year renewal options, the original terms and conditions of the contract will remain in effect. With the contract renewal, the contract's new expiration date would be July 1st of 2022. There will be no general fund impact from the exercising of the contract renewals. This agreement is currently funded by the Stormwater Pollution Abatement Fund and could potentially be funded in the future in part by the new Safe Clean Water Fund. The original contract ceiling of $3,150,000 remains the same, and the annual appropriation of $450,000 also remains the same. I thank you for your consideration, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Amaro. Yeah, and I think everyone needs to, are you in your vehicle?
I am. It actually is quite quiet here in a car. When you're at home and you have kids and dogs and spouses, I have found that it's quieter here in my car.
Yeah, well, and it's the sound here is really great. So we may need to.
Sound quality is absolutely
It's
great.
fantastic. We may need to request everyone to do presentations from their vehicles moving forward. Thank you, Joyce, very much. We appreciate it. Colleagues, any questions on this item?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Good. Thank you so very much for your report and for the work that is being done as we look at stormwater public education. What I wanted to ask is that these are 2 one-year contracts, and we're asking for concurrence or approval of both of them at the same time, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that is because the S. Groner and Associates company has proven that they have satisfactory performance, so we feel comfortable in getting them both approved. Is that the reason?
that is part of the reason. Yes, it was also recommended to us by the LA Sanitation Contracts Group that we explore the possibility of doing the 2 one-year contract renewals at the same time because of the amount of time that it does take to have this contract renewal go through the city processes.
Sure. So it will allow us, from a management perspective, to have continuity of service delivery in this service that they are providing to us without interruption of having to wait for approval in the midst of trying to get a confirmation. Now, when I look at the various tasks that are a part of this project, you mentioned the various things that we have to do, including making sure that we are getting information to places like veterinarian offices and other areas. You mentioned elementary education program being one of it. What schools, as we look at that, do we choose to implement the program in when we talk about, for example, the elementary education effort that we implement here?
Yes, so our school education program is coordinated by our, the nonprofit that we have, Malibu Foundation for Environmental Education. And they typically go to, we sometimes work with council offices to find out if there are schools that they would like us to make presentations or assemblies at. The subcontractor also has relationships with schools throughout LA Unified, and we go into schools throughout all of Los Angeles. So it is typically schools, you know, in every single one of the council offices. I should note that our budget was cut significantly during the economic downturn, and so the number of schools that we are able to go to has been significantly cut, but we do instruct our subcontractor to make sure that he is in schools in every single one of our council districts.
So in other words, we do in fact have elementary schools from South Los Angeles that are part of the program that we implement here. So in each, I guess at least one school in the 8th, 9th, and 10th, maybe one in Watts in the 15th, in the northern part of the 15th district, we can count for sure that we have schools in those areas. Is that right?
Yeah, we absolutely make sure that we have schools in every single council district that are represented.
Okay, and then the other outreach in terms of public education was that, I guess originally we felt that we would be able to use some of the media. I guess it was probably newspapers initially that we thought we were going to use, and then I guess in some ways the plan changed and we transformed to digital. Is that correct?
Yes, and so like I mentioned, in the economic downturn in 2009, our budget was cut by 50%, and so we had to pivot very quickly. And this was also something that we continue to this day. We do rely predominantly on digital media because that's the way that a lot of people receive their information these days.
Got it. Now, how many digital firms do we deal with?
We don't necessarily. Are you speaking about the platforms that we have, like Facebook?
Sure. Is it done in-house when we say we are delivering it digitally, or do we subcontract to small businesses in this regard as it relates to fulfilling our digital obligation?
So our digital programs is done both in-house with city staff and then also with S. Groner Associates as the lead for that.
Do they subcontract in any of those services as you talk about the external with this company? They are the prime contractor for that digital.
Correct.
Do they subcontract with other small businesses throughout LA in any way? Not really.
No, because we have set subcontractors for this contract. We do have one of our subcontractors, one of our MBEs, Ancon Communications, that helps out significantly with our Kids Ocean Day.
Sure.
And so they reach out to a lot of the bloggers and some of the online media to make sure that we are reaching out for that specific event.
And I know in today's market or today's environment with COVID, I guess the jury is still out if we will be able to do Kids Ocean Day this year, I can imagine. How could we finally begin to look at ways in which we could help to increase inclusion in terms of, even though it's a small project, it's only $1 million and something, right? How could we in the future look at, it's $3 million? Yeah, I don't have all of my papers. I apologize for that. However, how can we help increase inclusion as we look at the economic opportunity that a project such as this can present, if you will, in this city? How can we in the future? We did mention in our report that we've had a change and we changed to digital, and that certainly limited what we could do as it relates to that outreach. But in your review as the project director of this project, where are the potential opportunities in the future in terms of helping to increase inclusion? And I ask that question because we have acknowledged in our report that we have not done what we anticipated we wanted to do as it relates to inclusion, and I think that's pretty accurate. So then my final question is, what is it that we can do in the future to help to further develop that shortfall, if you will?
One of the ways that we have really tried to be more inclusive, and this has to do with the digital aspect of our program, and it addresses the digital divide, because when we first started having a lot of our outreach in the digital world, there was concern that we were missing out, that there was a segment of the population that just didn't have access to the internet or didn't have access to to a computer or to a laptop. And so we were very, very strategic in making sure that our programs and our platforms and what we created could be viewed on a cell phone, because just about everybody has a cell phone. And so I think that's one of the ways that we have bridged that digital divide, and that we will continue to look at making sure that our materials, when they are placed online, that you can actually view them on a cell phone. As far as how we could, address being more inclusive with our other, programs, I am learning, honestly, and I am certainly open to the team if there are any ideas about how to be more inclusive. We one idea that I had just off the top of my head is that to make sure that all of our materials are translated, we do ensure that our materials are in English and Spanish, but I could see a future where we are translating our outreach materials into additional languages. And that is actually something that I am advocating for in our Safe Clean Water program, that when we do outreach specifically for projects, that we talk to the council districts and we find out what are the languages that we may potentially need to translate our materials into, that is above and beyond the normal English and Spanish that we do translate our materials into.
Yeah, I would conclude by saying that's absolutely correct when you look at the diverse population of Los Angeles. It would be hard to escape that reality if we want to be effective in terms of public education. But finally, I will say that we might potentially explore the fact that there are, for example, some women and minority-owned digital companies, so that then we might be able to share the digital task, so that some of those women-owned minority companies can do the digital work. And you hit two stones with, you hit two birds with one stone, because they too will be able to help target those very areas for which they come from. So I think that moving forward, as we think about digital, we should not conclude that there are not some minority and women-owned businesses that can do digital.
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent suggestion. And, working within the scope of work within our contract, we will certainly explore that. So thank you absolutely for that recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Closa?
Thank you, President Good, and thank you, President Pro Tem Davis, for asking those questions. I thought that was really helpful in terms of unraveling the impact of the program. I know the intent of this program is really good, and I really appreciate LA Sand for continuing to invest in a public education program. I think that in so many ways we want to continue to challenge the metrics and the outcomes from this contractor, specifically because, $3.1 million is not an insignificant amount of money for public education. And I think to the point last made on inclusion, especially for the translation piece, Sherry Kuroki is actually the liaison for LA Sand for the internal language access group that I convene, and there's actually 12 threshold languages in the city of Los Angeles that we're technically required to be translating in, and that's information that I'm happy to share with you. But it's definitely more than just English and Spanish, so those are obviously the two big ones. But that's one immediate follow-up that I'd like for you to maybe send me an email about, and I can share that information with you. And to
yes, absolutely, thank you.
And to Commissioner Davis's point, what is the contractor's plan to shift their programming, knowing that it's going to have to be digital in the foreseeable future? Like, what are they going to do with these monies? Like, what are their new deliverables now, since they don't have printing costs, they don't have these in-person events? What is their plan to do outreach to our public schools to get this information out, to your point? If you can just share in a little bit more detail what that looks like.
Sure. So we are actually in the process of exploring that right now. We have all had to pivot very quickly because of COVID-19. And a few of the ideas that have been thrown out is the idea of doing a rain barrel education webinar for residents. There has been a lot of interest in rain barrels over the last few years. I think that speaks volumes to the impact that not only our program has had, but that other education programs have had throughout the years in really looking at stormwater now as a resource instead of a liability. So doing a webinar for the installation of rain barrels is one idea that we've had. We are also looking to our elementary education subcontractor and hoping to work with him to figure out how he can make those virtual presentations to elementary schools. So we will have to pivot to that. His assemblies were all in person, so we'll have to figure out how we can have that happen virtually. We also are working with the point of purchase program that I mentioned earlier. We have a list of emails that we have compiled over the years of different partners, the home improvement stores, garden centers, paint stores, and veterinary offices. And so we will be sending out an email to those offices, or not to those offices, but to those businesses and those establishments to learn, to see if we can go ahead and restock those printed materials. Some of the materials will be printed, and some of them we will need to do that printing. But we're really trying to adapt to this new world that we are living in, and exploring ways to continue to get our message out there virtually.
Thank you for sharing the initial plan that you have moving forward. I think, too, that this would also provide some reprieve for parents who are probably running out of things to do with their kids at home. So I'm sure it'll be a welcome in terms of this kind of after-school programming, if you will, potentially. But maybe just as a suggestion, maybe it would be good to work with the liaisons at the school, maybe take a survey of what kids are interested in. I'm not sure whether or not rain barrels will resonate with them right now. I say that given how hot it is, but maybe some other things will as it relates to the programming that you would typically do in person. And just one final question from me is, do you...
Commissioner, can I just clarify? So the rain barrel webinar that we were planning to do would be for residents, not for students.
Oh, okay, got it.
And we were planning to do that in the September-October timeframe, which is right before our rainy season.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And just a final question for me is there any evaluation, since you're asking us for a full 2-year renewal, so that we can better understand whether or not the programming that's happening is effective?
Sure. So we, and you are asking the million-dollar question, Commissioner. We always want to know if we are effective with our programming, and so we do, after each program that we typically do, we always do evaluate the effectiveness of it. But it's very difficult, and so we can evaluate the effectiveness of individual programs and how we were able to reach people. Finding out the effectiveness of our program overall is more difficult, as it would require us doing a survey, and that can be very expensive, upwards of $100,000 to $150,000 to do a survey. I would hope, and I have advocated to the County of Los Angeles, that they would do a larger survey of residents so that we know where we are with a lot of these issues. But to your point, Commissioner, when we are doing programs, we are always looking and evaluating the effectiveness of something. So for instance, for our e-newsletter that we send out on a quarterly basis, we are always looking at the open rates, and we are always looking at the click-through rates to see what resonated with people. If one type of article seems to really resonate with people, we take note of that. And so we try our best to always analyze and always evaluate the effectiveness of programs, both, especially after a program, to make sure that we are good stewards of the funding that has been provided to us.
Okay. Thank you for answering all my questions, and I will follow up with you on the other piece after this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Garcia, are you raising your hand?
Yes, actually, thank you, President James. I'm sorry, President Good, out of habit.
He would love that. He would have loved that.
No, I forgot about him already. Joyce, thank you for your report on this. I appreciate also my colleagues' questions. Both Davis and Calosa really gave really good points and good suggestions for us to look at. I think this is a good time for us to look at this contracts, but given the fact that it is a $3.5 million contract, we should probably have some metrics and some milestones that we need to reach on changed behavior, on not polluting our ocean anymore. I am the liaison to Kids Ocean Day, and I am also the liaison to Rain Barrels. And so I would really appreciate if we can have a conversation on what that's going to look like, especially within this context. And I do want to put in place, it doesn't have to be an expensive evaluation, but I would want to put into place if, one, Rain Barrels actually do work and people are using them, because I just feel we're putting these programs together and we don't have any sense of whether folks are just storing them to the side and they're there as storage now, or are they really using them? And I have a lot of experience now with the Rain Barrel community, so those are some things that I've been questioning for the past 2 years as well. So I would appreciate if we can have a meeting after today's conversation about how to really make this 3.5 million work, especially now since a lot of the events will be cut down. There's no big events. There's no in-person, at least for the foreseeable future. How do we make this a contract or a programs, multiple programs that can be beneficial and that we can actually have data and say, this program works, it did change the behavior, people are no longer polluting the ocean, or this program doesn't work, instead of continuing to just kind of do the same thing over and over. Mind you, I love Kids Ocean Day. I believe in Kids Ocean Day. For those that you don't know, it's the day that 4,000 kids come to the beach all at once. We're not having that now, and I don't know when that's going to happen again. But we can find very creative ways to still get the message out. So I would want to follow up with you, Joyce, and just having a thorough conversation about what the scope of work will be now moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Vice President. Commissioner, Commissioner Villegas, can you, do you have any questions?
I did, but did you want to ask something first?
Well, I was only asking, Mr. Scaduto, and I'm sure I'm doing a terrible job with your name, I apologize, from sanitation raised his hand, and I was thinking perhaps, Commissioner, that he may have something that would inform, whatever the question is.
Not a problem.
Michael, forgive my butchering of your name invariably, but we saw you raised your hand, so please go forward or proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners. Actually, you are one of the rare ones to get it correct, actually, so kudos to you. You did not butcher it. I just wanted to follow up with a couple of comments regarding, how we're measuring the product of this public education program. It really is an institutional program that it's hard to take a day and night or look at it yesterday and see how we're doing today. Joyce has been managing the program for quite a while, and she's done a very good job. I think the way we looked at the change over the course of the stormwater program for the last 20, 30 years is what we see in the reports that come out from Hilda Bay and their annual beach report card. If you look at the grades that we were receiving 20 years ago versus what we received this current year, there's been a drastic improvement in the beach water quality, and that's one component of that improvement is through the public outreach and what kids are learning from schools and taking home to their families. And I think most importantly, as being a co-permittee with the MS4 permit, is that we are in compliance. If we lose this program and we aren't doing our jobs, the permit can issue us fines of up to $32,000 per day per violation. So I think being in good standing terms with the permit and seeing the change overall at the beach water quality over the last 20 and 30 years is a good testament to the public outreach that's being done on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Michael. Michael Scaduto. See, I'm going to say your name over and over again because I feel so good about having gotten it right. Commissioner Villegas, would you like to share your questions?
I think Joyce has.
Yeah. Can I just add one more point to what Mike had mentioned? Much of what we do, we do try to measure the effectiveness as much as we can, but one huge element for me, or one huge success for me, is I've been with this program for almost 30 years, and when I first started, the norm out there was that stormwater was a liability, and it was looked at as such. And so the norms are changing, and we've been seeing that change happening over the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, where residents are now looking at, and municipalities as well, are looking at stormwater and rainwater as a resource, and as a very precious resource that we need to treasure and save and infiltrate and keep on our properties. And so I have really seen a huge shift in how the general public views the rainwater that we have, and the importance of retaining that rainwater and using it to create a more sustainable city.
Well, the success of Measure W is certainly a testament to that. Commissioner Villegas.
Thank you. I think a lot of the other commissioners asked some questions that I wanted to ask, so I appreciate Commissioner Davis, Calosa, and Garcia. But I do want to just mention a couple of comments, and I hope that you're able to look at these, in the future. I wish that, and maybe you had these conversations in 2015 when you initially contracted S. Schroner to do this work. But, since then, we have numerous nonprofit organizations that are now experts in community outreach, in social media, in measuring, the bacteria in the water. And I wish that you would be able to look at those so that our numbers for, contracting would be a lot higher. So I just make that, comment to you because it is striking to me that S. Schroner, the contracting percentages are very low. Considering we're in Los Angeles, and at this day and age, what they're doing is not an expertise. I do see that there are many other nonprofits that are now in this line of work that can do that work and probably do it better than private industry. That's just a personal comment, but I do want you to explore and just move and test, the structures that we have in place already, but think out of the box and think as extremely creative as you possibly can, because we're coming in a time where we don't have a lot of dollars and every penny counts. So to the extent that you can also get, Measure W dollars to fund this type of program, it'll free up your own monies that you use. That would be good as well. The other thing that I was going to point out is that Oceans Day did not occur this year. What cost of those funds, and you don't have to answer it today because I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm just asking a question, and you can feel free just to let me know later. The cost for Ocean Day, is there something that is going to be used in replacement of that, or is there other work that will be done? Other questions that you can come back to me on. But I just thought, I know that didn't take place because I've done so much work with many nonprofits and nobody was able to do anything because of the times that we're living in. But and last, I'll say that I have trepidation and concern that and excuse my harsh words, don't read too much into them. I as I'm talking, I'm thinking. And I will approve this item, but I just want you to know that I don't know what the reason is why you're coming to us today asking to approve the 2-year renewals. It was stated that it's administrative, but what I don't understand is why this year that is happening and how come it didn't occur when, before. That's all. But I think it's, I think as I'm talking, I'm probably answering my own question because this was either a 3-year contract. I think that's what it said in the report, and then with the 1-year renewal each time. But I just think that it's good to be able to see things over, each year to see the progress. And so those were just my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to clarify, so we initially had a 5-year contract with Esgroner Associates that was executed in 2015. And so our contract was due to end on July 1st of 2020. And we were able to exercise the 6-month extension because we knew we needed a little bit more time to come to the Board of Public Works. And in the original contract, or in the original process that was presented to the Board of Public Works and then went to City Council, there were the 2 one-year contract renewal options that were in that contract that was executed in 2015.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Villegas.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Amaro. So I think this has been a very good discussion, and I do want to communicate some thoughts from my perspective as well. One is I do have concerns about certainly I'm sensitive to the fatigue of coming back each year on 1-year renewals, et cetera. I'm sensitive to the administrative challenges with that. That said, I think that, you know, if we look at the MEB-WEB numbers and the outreach numbers, I do want to flag, Ms. Amaro, there seems some inconsistency. The report says the total MEB-WEB participation is at 9.24%, but you mentioned 12%. At least Table 1 suggests it's at 9.4. In any event, I feel like in light of the import of that participation, that and simply put, I don't want to say failure, but you know, Esgroner's not having met those goals, that extending for 2 years, frankly, when we don't need to extend for 2 years yet, would be premature. I also think in light of the exceedingly dynamic environment, ranging from, again, as you alluded to, I mean, people's own perception of what stormwater is, as illustrated by the victory of Measure W, and a very, very changing landscape around this work, coupled with the practical and logistical challenges and changes around this work, as we also have all alluded to. How do you do outreach in 2020, 2021 versus 2018, 2017 when we were in the early stages of this contract? It also says to me it may be premature to grant a 2-year extension when not necessary. And so while I'm inclined personally to approve extension, I will also would like to introduce an amending motion to only extend for 1 year, and to ask sanitation to come back next year, and Groner to come back next year for the request for the subsequent renewal for year 2.
I would second that motion. I think that's an outstanding observation when we all are collectively participating in an effort to increase our performance. So I think that's an excellent idea.
Thank you for your second, Commissioner.
President Greg, can I add something to this too?
Yes, Vice President.
I absolutely support your motion and your amendment motion as well. Given said that, Joyce, I think this is the best time for us to build together a scope of work, because I do want to see where this money is actually going. So I invite that if we can work on this either together or just for me to see what you guys are doing or anything like that, so that it can bring some meat into this contract, is I think what I'm having a hard time moving forward with it as well. I mean, I agree with my colleagues. I will support it as well, because I think this is absolutely necessary and important, and I don't want us to be out of compliance as well. But I do think we need some meat to this, and so I would appreciate if we can work together on that.
Absolutely, Commissioner. Thank you.
And any other follow-up questions, Commissioner Colosa?
No, I second as well.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioner Villegas?
No questions, and I'll second as well.
So I have 3 seconds. Dr. Oh, 4. Okay, I'm sorry. 4 seconds.
Garcia, I
so,
think.
sorry, Vice President Garcia. Dr. Campos, can you re-articulate for us what I said?
Yes, so the motion presented by Commissioner or President Good, seconded by Vice President Garcia, Pro Tem Davis, Colosa, and Villegas is to adopt the report as amended to exercise the first one-year renewal option. So we would strike out the 2, and we would strike out the S in option, make it singular.
Thank you. Mr. Morrow and Michael, please, I want to echo Commissioner Villegas. I hope that you don't come away feeling that this is a critique of y'all's or the work. I think it's really recognition of the myriad new factors that we're dealing with in this work, and a real opportunity, as I would say Vice President Garcia really articulated quite well, to take it all to a different level. And that would be our challenge to y'all and to Esgroner going forward next year.
Thank you.
So with no objections, so moved with the amendment. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, y'all, for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting in your car.
Thank you.
And Mr. President, would you like to move this item forthwith?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Dr. Campos. So with no objections, we will move that forthwith. All right. I see Mr. Shu in the queue, as it were, for item number 4. This takes us to an item, this is in Council District 11. Again, forgive the lengthy noise of my voice, but I got a lot of recommendations to read for you here. So, item number 4, recommending the board, 1, find that the board has reviewed and considered the information in the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Metro, Crenshaw LAX Transit Corridor Project Draft Environmental Impact Statement and Environmental Impact Report, EIS-EIR, Transmittal number 1, and the project final, EIS-EIR, Transmittal number 2. 2, find under the California Public Resources Code, Section 21166, in the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA Guidelines, Section 15162, on the basis of substantial evidence contained in the whole record, that since certification of EIS-EIR, there have been no changes with respect to the circumstances under which the temporary street closure being undertaken would require a subsequent EIR or supplemental EIR. 3, adopt the October 2011 Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, Transmittal number 3, prepared by Metro as it pertains to construction impacts. 4, find under CEQA Guidelines, Section 15091, that changes have been incorporated into the into the project, which substantially lessen the significant environmental impacts as identified in the final EIS-EIR. Further find that there is no feasible alternative or additional feasible mitigation measures within the board's powers that would substantially lessen any significant effect the project would have on the environment. 5, adopt the attached CEQA findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations, transmittal number 4, as it pertains to the temporary street closure, and find that the economic, social, technological, and other benefits of the project outweigh its significant and unavoidable impacts. 6, specify that the Metro Transit Division of the Bureau of Engineering, located at 1149 South Broadway Street, the board, located at 200 North Spring Street, and other relevant City of Los Angeles departments are custodians of the documents or other material which constitute the record of the proceedings upon which the board's decision is based. 7, approve the request to temporarily close 111th Street, west of Aviation Boulevard for 5 calendar days, starting Thursday, July 16, 2020 at 6 a.m. and ending Tuesday, July 21, 2020 at 6 a.m., subject to the conditions identified within this report. And 8, approve the peak hour exemption request, transmittal number 5, on 111th Street and Aviation Boulevard to allow construction work during weekday morning peak hours, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., and weekday afternoon peak hours, 3:30 p.m. to 7 p.m., starting Thursday, July 16, 2020, and ending Tuesday, July 21, 2020, subject to the conditions identified within this report. Our representative from the Bureau of Engineering today is Larry Hsu. Larry, please share. And it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for reading that in. So I will now read in my report. Good morning. This is Larry Hsu with Bureau of Engineering Metro Transit Division. The Crenshaw LAX Transit Project is an 8.5-mile alignment that will connect the Expo line and to the Green Line. And the Crenshaw LAX project is scheduled to be completed in 2021. The street closure request before you today is located near the southern end of the Crenshaw LAX project alignment on 111th Street, west of Aviation Boulevard, and the other end of this is Lawa-owned property. It's a very short street segment, approximately 150 feet in length. The request is for 5 calendar days, starting this Thursday, July 16th, 2020 at 6 a.m. and ending Tuesday, July 21st at 6 a.m. to facilitate roadway reconstruction. All major construction approvals associated with the work have been approved. The traffic management plans have been approved by LADOT. Staff of BOE's Environmental Management Division have confirmed that this closure is consistent with Metro CEQA documentation and should not result in any new significant environmental impacts. Metro's construction relations team has stated they have provided advance notice to the community and have met with stakeholders, including Gateway to the LAX Business Improvement District, LAX Coastal Chamber of Commerce, LAWA, the Proud Bird, I guess the name is Food Bazaar and Event Center, and others with access on 111th Street and Aviation Boulevard. The stakeholders did not have objections to the closure. Metro has also worked with Councilman Bonin's office, and they have concurred with this closure. That concludes my report. We have representatives from Metro and Walshay Corridor Constructors to answer any questions you may have about this request.
Colleagues, do we have questions? See none. Mike, are you? Okay. Commissioner Garcia?
No questions, President. Thank you.
Commissioner Villegas?
No questions. Thank you.
It's from Thursday morning until Tuesday morning. It's not bad. Yeah. And it's
That's correct.
It's a tiny street, actually.
Do you have the council office to support, obviously?
Yes, and the businesses that use that street, they have another access at the other end of their road, so it's not we're not cutting off anybody by this closure.
Is it the kind of closure where we need to send notification blocks before people get to the intersection? I know in the past we've kind of employed that kind of an operation of communication with motorists, and I don't know if it's a lot of traffic in that area and we need to do the same.
I think there's a lot of traffic on Aviation Boulevard going north and south there. I think part of the traffic control plans, they have changeable message signs that warn motorists, and I'm not sure when they're putting those up.
This is not as residential, though, is it? No. It's not that residential, though, is it? So we probably.
Oh no! Nobody lives in that area.
We won't need as much because I think closer into the city in the Crenshaw area, further down, where it's more urban, there is more of an interrelationship between the transition between neighborhoods to the thoroughfare there. So I think it's a little different in terms of traffic. So that kind of answers my question. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Is there a second to my motion to adopt item 4 forthwith?
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Calosa and Commissioner Villegas seconding. Any objections? Commissioner Garcia?
No objections.
Commissioner Davis? All right. With that, hearing none, the item is approved forthwith.
Thank you very much. Have a
Mr.
nice
Chu.
day.
All right, colleagues, friends, and neighbors, this takes us to our last item on the agenda. Item 5 is all council districts. This is a stop payment notice. PowerJet Engineering, Inc. PowerJet Engineering, Inc. is transmitting a stop payment notice in the amount of $393,703.55 for furnishing labor, services, equipment, or materials in connection with the North Outfall Sewer Rehabilitation Unit 8, 6th to 8th Street right-of-way and Enterprise Street siphon modification project. Say that a few times over and over. The primary contractor for this project is Mladen Buntich Construction Company, Inc. No representative on this item since it's an administrative item. Is there a second to my motion to adopt item 5 forthwith? Seconded by Commissioner Davis. Any objections, Commissioner Villegas?
No objections.
Any objections, Vice President Garcia?
No.
Any objections, Commissioner Closa?
No objections, thank you.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Davis. Hearing no objections, the item is approved forthwith. All right. Dr. Campos, does that clear the desk?
Yes, it does.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if no one has anything else, thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Have fabulous days.
Fernando, do we stay online or do we go to another link?
Commissioner Garcia,
Yes.
did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You had a question?
Yeah, my question was, do we stay on this link? Don't we, sorry, is today our director's meeting?
No, the board scheduled that for Tuesday the 21st.
Okay,
Next
then no
Tuesday.
worries, sorry.
Next Tuesday.
I'm trying to get over it. I'm trying to get over this NyQuil.
Feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah.